The narrative continues tonight in chapter 15 of the second book of Samuel. And so Absalom stole the hearts of the men of Israel. David's son Absalom spent 3 years in exile, an enemy of the state, a fugitive from the law. At least that's the official word that came from the palace. And on the face of it, it was right. Absalom had murdered his half-brother, Amnon, the crown prince of Israel. Maybe he didn't do it with his own hands. No one saw him do it. In fact, nobody saw anything that night when the lights went out. But Absalom must have arranged it because it happened out at his ranch when he threw a big party. And when the lamps were relit, there lay Amnon dead. And Absalom was gone, far across Jordan, to his grandfather, the king of Geshur. The people, however, remembered it a little differently. They recall that Amnon was David's firstborn. Amnon was always David's favorite and heir to David's throne. They also remember that Amnon was spoiled, privileged, and above the law. Amnon cruelly tricked his half-sister Tamar to come to his house on a mission of mercy, brutally raped her, threw her out, barred the doors behind her, and sent her weeping through the streets, disheveled and disgraced. And David didn't do a thing. And that never rung up with them. Amnon goes away scot-free. And Absalom gets banished for life. That score was never settled in their minds until one day Absalom settled it. But that happens a lot. Word comes down from on high, but don't bet a great deal that the people in the street are believing it. The famous Warren Commission ruled that Lee Harvey Oswald, all by himself, assassinated the president of this country. But a whole lot of people never bought that line. President Johnson himself never believed it, and he's the one who appointed the Warren Commission. The verdict in the O.J. Simpson trial, in the impeachment proceedings against the president, well, that stuff comes down. But you can find in every coffee shop and neighborhood tavern across this country, people got a lot of different opinions on that. And something very much like that happens now in the story. Support for Absalom comes not only from the people, they kind of like him, but from an unexpected source. From Joab, commander of the armies. Joab always saw in Absalom something of the boy's father, charismatic, courageous, and saw in Absalom something of himself, ruthless, daring to do whatever needs to be done. Joab is a patriot, no matter what all else he is. And he knows that if anything happens to David, there is only one man who can take his place, and that's Absalom. He tries to get David to let Absalom come back, but he never gets to first base. So he hatches another little plan. Joab knows a woman in a little village not far from Bethlehem. who is known as the wise woman of Tekoa. He persuades her to persuade David to let Absalom come back. So one day she shows up in court, dressed in black, the widow's clothes of mourning. And she tells a sad story about her two sons, one of whom killed the other in an argument out in the field. And now the clan wants to come and slay the murderer, robbing her of the last living relative she has left in this world. I'm not a judge of her mother, she said. What do I care about justice if it takes the last person on earth I've got away from me? Will the death of the second son return the first son to life? Can spilt milk be gathered up? Ostensibly, she's talking about her two sons, but really, she's talking about David's two sons. Yes, woman, I'll take care of it, David said. But she isn't done. She's just warming up. On and on she goes. 5 times David agrees with her. And with feminine logic and long-winded arguments and tears and pleading, till finally she gets David to think he thought of it. The women in the first service this morning didn't think that was odd at all. Thought it was. All right, I'll do it, David said. And he says to Joab, go get Absalom and bring him back. But with one ominous qualification. He must never see my face. This is the third monumental sin in David's life. It is the most unexcusable sin. And it's the sin that's going to bring him the most suffering. David's adultery with Bathsheba, well, that was a crime of passion, a fling of the moment. David's murder of Uriah, well, that's a typical response of men in power to cover up. But David's treatment of Absalom was fixed and steady and determined, and he refused to share his only son the grace that God had so abundantly shared with him. Oh, this was sin with a blueprint. Cold, premeditated sin. See, Jerusalem wasn't that big of a town. And if David could not see Absalom and not be seen by Absalom, you had to orchestrate that with all of your travel agents and the office staff. And now I know that's a popular discipline today, to send people out of the room, because you don't want to face them and confront them and scold them and forgive them. But you're sowing a harvest you ain't going to want to reap. Jesus once told a story about a boy who broke his father's heart and then ran off to a far country and then disgraced himself, his family, and his father. And as terrible a thing as that was, the father watched him every day, waited for him, kept a light burning in the window, wanting him back home. And when that ragged creature came down the road, the father ran up, hugged him, kissed him, and welcomed him back. What if David had been that father? What if he sat down with Absalom and let the boy tell his side of the story? How he loved his sister King. How angry he was at what Amnon did to her. How his vengeance, looking back on it, was extreme. How homesick he was those 3 years in exile. Then a father would have had his sons more. And a son would once again have had a father. So Absalom comes back to Jerusalem. At first he's happy to be home, but then he finds out he's not home. Oh, he has a royal pardon from the government, but he has no personal forgiveness. He's in limbo. No man's land. A pariah, a persona non grata at the palace, a social outcast at the court, treated like a leper by everybody who is important. 2 years this goes on. And finally, Absalom sends a message to Joab. He wants to know, why the heck did you ever bring me back in the first place? But Joab ignores the message. He sends a second message to him. We've got to have a meeting, buddy, but he misses the appointment. So Absalom burns down Joab's barley fields to the ground. Now, picture the farmers out there telling the story. How the high and mighty Joab and the royal cavalry came galloping out of the fort, and the fields are black and ash. And there stands Absalom right in the middle of the road. Joab, I see you got my message. And how that story circulated. And that's the way it goes on. It did not diminish Absalom. It increased his stature. And then to add to that, Absalom has 3 sons. And 1 daughter, but he leaves the sons in the background, which is absolutely unheard of in Eastern culture. Because the apple of his eye is his daughter, whom he named Tamar, in honor of his dishonored sister. And then to add to that, Absalom has striking good looks. He was recognized as far away the most handsome man in the land. The Bible says that from the top of his head to the bottom of his foot, there was not one blemish in him. And that helps. And then there was something about his hair. He wore it very long and very thick, but that's not unusual in Hebrew. One of his hair was another color. Golden. Flaming red. His mother, you may remember, was not a Jewess. And now Absalom's going through the streets of the city in a chariot drawn by horses with 50 outrunners. And that beautiful hair streaming behind him. And if you call that showboating, there was never ever another prince in Israel who took the concerns of the common people to heart as Absalom did. Every single day there was a long line of men and women at the gate with their grievances and their complaints, and there wasn't a soul to listen to them. I don't know how or why the wheels of government had broken down. Was David laid up with some debilitating illness? Had his administration lost touch with the common people? Or didn't they give a rip about the rank and file? Absalom was there. Absalom listened to them. And he wasn't proud. The contrary was true. If anyone even looked like he was going to bow down, Absalom grabbed his hand, hugged him. I'm no better than you are, man. When you put all that together, you will understand the next line. So Absalom stole the hearts of the men of Israel. There's 2 ways you can take that line. Absalom took what was not his to have. He robbed from his father the kingdom that belonged to David. That's how most Bible teachers explain it, because that's the way the story ends up. But the story didn't start that way. That line could also be a compliment, the way you might say of your sweetheart. She stole my heart away. And by that you don't mean she committed a criminal act of grand larceny or armed robbery. What you mean is, you were so captivated by her charms that you surrendered your heart wholly and completely to her without any sense of shame or guilt. Now, back up just for a minute. And remember the larger plot to this story. God is building his kingdom here. Not a worldly kingdom, regal, imperious power, but a kingdom of mercy and truth and faith. And nobody's paying attention because they're all pursuing the storyline of their own life, aren't they? Amnon rapes Tamar. Absalom kills Amnon. David banishes Absalom. Joab blames David. The wise woman supports Joab. The people side with the wise woman. And pretty soon, you can't draw a straight line anymore from who caused what to who, cause and effect. They're all causing people. Sometimes it's their sin, sometimes it's somebody else. But you're in the same spot. Now, look at your own life and mine. Doesn't that same thing happen to us? So-and-so did this to that person, when and where and why, and he reacted this way, and she reacted that way, and I took sides for this reason, well, for other reasons too, but not for those reasons. And the next thing you know, we're caught in the same doggone thing. Who's more guilty than somebody else? Yeah, you figured it out. And we're the devil's name. And the whole weight of sin becomes unbearable. And Jesus is going to keep straight. Forgive us our trespasses. Plural. Plural. Because we're all in this together. You with your sins, I with mine, she with maybe more, he with maybe less. What difference? And finally, we got to ask him to unburden us. To have mercy on us all, to set us free, to repeat one more time the prayer that his Father always says, Father, forgive them, because they don't know what they're doing. Amen.